It's time to feel what you've been bottling up. Life in rural America isn't easy. The long hours, the constant pressures, the demands of the land, livestock, and family, it all takes a toll. We're tough and we've got grit, but somewhere along the way, toughness started meaning bottling up emotions and powering through. But here's the truth. That strategy, it's not working and it's poisoning us. Maybe you've noticed and maybe you haven't, but the numbers don't lie. We're breaking down and it's showing up in our bodies, our relationships, and in the rising suicide rates in agriculture. You don't have to carry any of it alone. There's another way. If you're ready to stop being weighed down and start moving forward, my one-on-one good movement guidance is now open. Visit the link in the show notes to learn more and see if one-on-one guidance could be for you.
I'll carry you, you carry me, we'll help each other through it. Come on and say good movement draws good movement.
Welcome to Good Movement Draws Good Movement, the podcast where farmers, ranchers, and rural folks can grow relationally through awareness, understanding, and effective communication. Hey, it's T. I'm your host, and I, along with my guests, will be covering topics related to drawing good movement. Things like self and social awareness, brain science, positive psychology, extending grace, and so much more. We'll share tools that can help you understand why you are the way you are, why others are the way they are, and how you can use that to step out of self-told lies with grace and compassion to draw good movement in conversations, relationships, and life in rural America. Let's go draw good movement. Welcome back to the Good Movement Draws Good Movement podcast. Do you remember back in episode 36 when we talked about boundaries and how boundaries can be one of the kindest things that we can do for ourselves and others, and how the fences that we build on the ranch can mirror the boundaries that we set in our lives? Some are strong and permanent, while others are more flexible and or temporary. Healthy boundaries are essential for protecting ourselves and our relationships, but unhealthy boundaries can isolate us and keep us from facing reality. So today, we're going to build on the concepts from episode 36, and we're also going to talk about how we can use boundaries wisely. Make sure that we're setting healthy boundaries and not using boundaries to avoid things. So we're just going to refresh our memories on the different types of boundaries using the fence analogy. So permanent fences, these are unyielding boundaries. Think about pipe, guardrail, or continuous fences that are built to last and do not budge under pressure. These represent non-negotiable boundaries in our lives, like core values or deal breakers. When we're using them for good, they provide safety, protect our emotional well-being, and define clear limits in relationships. When they're not used for good, they can become rigid walls that prevent growth, healing, and deep connections. The next is those adjustable boundaries. So think high tensile electric fence or barbed wire fence. These are permanent, but they're not as unyielding as the pipe and guardrail. They are nevertheless powerful. So these fences are easier to move. You can crawl through a barbed wire or hop over a high tensile electric if it's a single wire. And these are way easier to put a gate in, but they still send a very clear message when you touch them or apply pressure. These types of fences represent the more flexible boundaries that can be adjusted depending on the situation or season. You know, if you need to put a gate in these boundaries, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, not a big deal. If you need to hop over or let people hop over the electric fence, no problem. When these are used for good, they allow us to adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining our self-respect and taking care of ourselves. When they are not good, they can lead to confusion or inconsistency, making it hard for others to respect them. If you get wishy-washy with them, then that's confusing. The next type of fence are the temporary fences. So the boundaries that we use for short-term solutions, like the lightweight polywire fences that Tom and I used for our meadow rotation over the summer, or for short-term needs like fencing stuff out of a stack yard just for the time that they're going to be in the pasture. These are situational boundaries, like saying no during a busy season, or setting limits with extended family during holidays, or excusing yourself from a conversation that you don't have the mental bandwidth to participate in the moment. When these are good, they help us manage stress and protect ourselves in the moment. When they're not good, is if we rely on them too long, they can become ineffective and send mixed signals, much like the barbed wire and the high tensile fence. If you're not maintaining those fences, it can get confusing, i.e., if you're not maintaining those boundaries, it can get confusing. So the purpose of boundaries, there are a couple of purposes for boundaries. One that's helpful and one that can be harmful. So boundaries for protection, these are the kind boundaries we talked about in episode 36. Fences are meant to keep our livestock safe from predators and or away from dangerous areas like, say, the highway or the railroad tracks, depending on where you live. Fences can also serve to keep our livestock out of certain areas or pastures, protecting the range from things like overgrazing. In life, these boundaries protect us from harm, whether it's emotional, mental, physical, etc. An example of this is saying no to toxic relationships, or refusing to take on more than we can handle, or things that cause us to harbor resentment. Now, boundaries can also be used for avoidance. These would be fences that are put up to keep something out, but also doesn't serve us long term. An example of this on the ranch, fencing off a water source, like a tank, a windmill, permanent solar, whatever it is, fencing off a water source that isn't working rather than fixing the issue so that the cattle can use it, because it's easier and faster in the moment to just fence it off than it is to go through the process of fixing the problem or solving the problem, taking care of that issue so that you can use it long term. In life, these boundaries can sometimes become excuses to avoid difficult topics or personal growth. Topics including, but not limited to, emotions, feelings, ideas that differ from yours, succession planning, etc. Shutting people out completely after conflict or refusing to talk about certain topics instead of working through them are examples of unhealthy boundaries used for avoidance. We can evaluate our boundaries before we set them to make sure that we are setting boundaries that are kind and healthy and for protection, and not setting the boundary for avoidance. And there are some questions that we can ask ourselves. So some of those include, are your fences, i.e. boundaries, serving their purpose, or are they creating unintended consequences? Are your boundaries protecting your well-being, or are they keeping you from addressing something that you need to face? Reflect on that and ask yourself, where in your life do you need a more permanent boundary? Where could you benefit from more flexibility? Are there areas where you've been using boundaries to avoid hard stuff? You can't see me, but I'm raising my hand on all of the above. So maintaining healthy boundaries includes building those strong, intentional fences. So focusing on clear communication, letting others know why your boundaries are in place. If it's appropriate, you don't have to tell anyone else that you have the boundary. That's for you to hold and maintain. It's not other people's responsibility to do that. Per our conversation in episode 36, you can maintain your fences, just like ranch fences. Boundaries need regular maintenance to ensure they're working as intended. And so in this step of maintaining your boundaries, you can go around your boundary and look and see if there are holes that need patched up, or if it's time to put a gate in so that you can open it and walk through once in a while, but you can come back and shut the gate, or if you can take down the boundary altogether. I guess if I'm getting too into this analogy and it doesn't make sense, feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram, because I would love to help clear up any confusion that I've caused with my analogy, but it makes sense to me. So then also knowing when to take the fence down. Sometimes a boundary is no longer needed. So be willing to reevaluate, like when you're going around maintaining your boundaries, be willing to reevaluate and remove the boundaries when they become barriers to growth. Or, if you just want to open the gate for a bit, that's cool too. To wrap things up, boundaries, like fences, are meant to guide, protect, and create space for growth. But we have to be intentional about how we build and maintain them so they serve us and our relationships well. Reflect on the fences, i.e., boundaries in your life. Are they helping or hindering? Are they protecting or isolating? What kind of fences are you building? What kind of boundaries are you holding in your life? I would love to hear about the boundaries that have served you well, or the ones that you've taken down, or if you need clarity on my fence boundary analogy. So shoot me a DM on Instagram. And with that, until next time, draw good movement. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm so grateful for you. If you found value in this episode, I'd love for you to share with others who might also benefit from tuning in. Share by word of mouth, send it in a text, take a screenshot and post it on social media, or share however you prefer. And if you haven't already, hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Until next time, draw good movement.